Battle of Hampton Roads, a turning point in naval warfare. March 9th, 1862, the battle between the Merrimac and the USS Monitor took place off Sewell Point, Virginia. This battle proved to be a major turning point in naval warfare. The northern blockade of southern ports enforced by the Union Army caused the South to turn to France in a last-ditch effort to gain an advantage over the North. It all started at the Battle of Hampton Roads, where two metal ships were put to the test and battled each other, forever changing history as we know it. The American Civil War was an important event in American history. It is also known as America's bloodiest war, with severe devastating effects on the population. It was a collision between the ideals of an industrial North and an agrarian South over the issues of states' rights and slavery. This war splintered out of control when a series of compromises failed to settle the main issue of the time, that America was being divided into because of cultural, political, and economical differences of the North and South. The Civil War started after the newly chosen president, Abraham Lincoln, was elected president without any Southern votes, receiving most of them from the free Northern states. In fear of Lincoln outlawing slavery, several states seceded or left the Union and created the Confederate States of America, splitting the country in half, all before Lincoln's inauguration as the president. While the current president, James Buchanan, did little to stop the secession because he thought it would be illegal to use the army in this circumstance. After Lincoln became president, Congress and he made an army to stop the Confederate States of America. After numerous battles such as Gettysburg, Antietam, Shiloh, Vicksburg, and many others led to the progressive rise in casualties. The significant battles that affected the outcome of the war was fought man-to-man on land as opposed to naval warfare at rivers and seas. Though one of the turning points in naval warfare was a fight between two ironclads at the Battle of Hampton Roads, making wooden ships obsolete. This was one of the least significant battles to the outcome of the Civil War, but one of the most influential outcomes in the naval world and issuing a new era of naval warfare.
The Confederate States of America, with its small naval force and suffering from a Union blockade, had to be innovative, and they needed to be innovative fast. This need would result in some of the most important technological advancements in maritime history. The Confederate States of America was the first nation to use mines, which they called torpedoes. Their submarine, the Hunley, made the first successful submarine attack against a ship. However, the most influential innovation that came out of this war was the Ironclad. Although it wasn't a new innovation, as they were already being built in France, they had never been used to the same extent as in the Civil War. In 1861, the Confederate Secretary of the Navy, Stephen R. Mallory, commenced the plans for the construction of an ironclad warship. This ironclad would later be known as the CSS Virginia. The Virginia was constructed out of the derelict remains of the USS Merrimac. The Virginia was armored densely in 24 inches of pine and oak and another 4 inches of iron. She was armed with two 7-inch rifles, two 6.4-inch rifles, and three 9-inch Dahlgren smoothbores on each side. She also had a ram at the fore of the ship. Secretary Mallory selected Captain Buchanan of Maryland to command the ship. Lieutenant Catesby Ap Roger Jones of Virginia was chosen as second in command. Captain Buchanan's orders were to break the Union blockade and generally wreak havoc on Union wooden vessels. At the same time that the Virginia was being constructed, similar plans for ironclad warships were being conceived in Washington. John Ericsson, an eminent shipbuilder from Sweden, made plans for an ironclad with a roundhouse gun turret that could shoot 360 degrees. This plan was ultimately built and named the Monitor by the Washington government. Shortly after the Monitor's construction, terrified Washingtonians heard rumors of an attack by the Virginia. The government dispelled these rumors and realized that the real threat lay to their fleet at Hampton Roads. On March 6th of 1862, the Monitor departed to defend the fleet at Hampton Roads. 2 days later, the Virginia left Norfolk and headed to Hampton Roads to attack the Union ships. 10 hours later, the Virginia arrived and started to attack the Union fleet. She first struck at the Congress. The Congress fired a full broadside upon the Virginia, but were horrified to find that she had suffered no damage. The Virginia then fired upon the Congress, severely damaging her wooden hull. Afterwards, the Virginia turned towards the Cumberland and rammed into her, creating a large hole below the waterline. The Cumberland responded by firing at the Virginia, causing some damage and killing some of her crew. The Virginia eventually broke free of the Cumberland and turned back towards the Congress, and recommenced attacking the Congress until she surrendered. While this attack was taking place, Captain Buchanan climbed to the deck, but was wounded by a rifle shot, placing Lieutenant Jones in command. At 5 p.m. the next day, the Monitor finally arrived. When the Monitor was helping the crew of the recently wounded Minnesota, the Congress exploded. The following morning, the Monitor and the Virginia started their battle. Captain Worden of the Monitor tried to keep the Virginia away from the other Union ships. Each ship had disadvantages. The Virginia was large and cumbersome, while the Monitor could only shoot one of its 2 cannons at a time, and the enclosed gun turret made it difficult to see the Virginia. At 2 in the afternoon, the Monitor did not respond with fire, and with the tide running out, Lieutenant Jones decided to return to Norfolk. The battle ended in a stalemate. Months later, on May 11, 1862, the CSS Virginia was scuttled to prevent the U.S. government from getting hold of her technology. The Monitor also faced a heroic yet tragic end. On December 31st of the same year, she sank in a storm off the coast of North Carolina. Because of the impressive results of these 2 early prototypes, the Ironclad would continue to be a prominent feature of naval warfare during the Civil War and after. Before the advent of our modern metal warships, naval warfare had an archaic wooden appearance. Massive floating islands of wooden sail dominated the aquatic battlefield. They were large, impressive, and dangerous. In a battle, masts could easily collapse onto the deck. A blast to the broadside would send giant splinters to impale any sailor unfortunate enough to be standing by. In the olden days of wooden sail, numbers counted. The country with the largest navy dominated the world. As the song Rule Britannia, Britannia Rule the Waves clearly expresses, Britain had the strongest navy in the world. Their massive man-o'-war struck horror and fear into the hearts of their foes. Their naval war machine was challenged by no one. That is, until the Civil War, when the Confederates and the Union discovered a new type of warship that would change the world forever.
On May 24, 1917, during the later days of World War I, the British Royal Navy created a new strategy in order to avoid German U-boats from destroying ships called the convoy system. It was a group of 10 to 50 ships with military protection, mainly a cruiser, 6 destroyers, 11 armed trawlers, and 2 torpedo boats. This was a crucial part of the war because after America joined the war to help protect the American troops who were traveling across the Atlantic Ocean to fight in World War I. Although in the beginning they believed it was a waste of resources and ineffective, the significance of this strategy is that the damage from German U-boats decreased immensely, which allowed for more Americans to aid the fight against the Germans and others of the Triple Alliance, ultimately allowing the Triple Entente to win World War I. In World War II, naval warfare played a more significant role in the outcome of the war than on land, especially when it came to fighting the Japanese. After the Battle of Midway, the Americans made a counteroffensive, also known as island hopping. It was the idea that the Navy would focus on capturing key island bases one after another in order to come within bombing range of Japan. The counterattack was led by General Douglas MacArthur and was ultimately successful.
Today, the Navy largely uses its ships to protect sea lanes and the power of the United States around the world. Immediately after World War II and the Korean War, the U.S. Navy was used to train and build up other navies, especially the Japanese Navy. Ships are also used in warfare. A common example of their use is in the transportation of soldiers. The ships will arrive in large numbers at the area that they want to control. They will then take out as many enemy posts that they can see and will land the troops. During war, ships will also transport goods and armaments to the soldiers on land. The Navy is essential to maintaining this title of a superpower and keeping America the most powerful nation in the world.